Your girl had her first ever breakup. Being bossy is asking for what you want. It's having boundaries, it's having standards, it's showing love and compassion for yourself. I had a very bossy breakup. I'm holding your hand. And I really just wanted to call him in the middle of the night, my time, and just be done with it and move on. Now let's get into actually navigating the shitstorm that is being broken up with or having a breakup. I walked past the place that we had our first date and I saw this graffiti on the wall that said, smile today, more love, por favor. The life that I want doesn't have space for you in it. When I sent off all his stuff and I said goodbye, it just, again, gave me so much peace that I ended it with love. If there's any guys watching this is like so applicable to you as well. Harvest season is coming and life's plan for you is always better than your plan for life. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Reclaiming Bossy podcast. It's a new year and I want to start this new year by talking about breakups because your girl had her first ever breakup. If you don't know me, hi, my name is Mahika. I am reclaiming being bossy because I've been called bossy my whole life. And I want to show that it's not necessarily a bad thing because being bossy is asking for what you want. It's having boundaries, it's having standards, it's showing love and compassion for yourself. And I think breakups is a really good topic to talk about in the theme of being bossy because I had a very bossy breakup and I want to share how that helped me and how I've been able to grieve the person, the relationship, and get my spark back. And I've been doing it for the last few days. Obviously, grief comes in waves and breakups are hard, heartbreaks are hard. This was my first one, my first relationship, my first heartbreak. And so it hurts a lot. But what I've learned from this experience is that when you feel heartbroken and when you feel like shame around being upset, especially with relationships, sometimes you close off. When I had my breakup, I was so sad and I felt like such a failure because I felt like I should have known better. And so I didn't want to talk to anyone. I didn't want to talk to my family. I didn't want to talk to close friends because I just didn't want anyone to tell me, one, I told you so, and two, like rationalize, it's okay, your life is going to be better, all this stuff. I just wanted to feel sad. And so if you want to feel sad and you feel alone, but you want company and you want guidance and you want advice and you want someone to hold your hand, I'm holding your hand. Get a cup of tea, get a snack. We're going to do it together because breakups suck. But you know what sucks more? Shrinking yourself and being in something that doesn't serve you. And so let's talk about it. How you can end something with love, how you can move forward with love, and how you can be like self-loving to yourself and loving to the other person and just be bossy about the whole thing. Now, I want to talk about how I went into the conversation of my breakup before I talk about what I've learned afterwards and how I've managed to navigate it, because I think there's a couple of things. First of all, PSA, breakups are not one size fits all. If you ended your relationship because of something harmful like abuse, I'm really sorry. But if you kind of are going into a conversation knowing that you're going to break up with someone or that you're going to be broken up with, these are a few points. Number one, this is the case for any difficult conversation you will ever have in your life, whether it be a breakup with a romantic partner, with a friend, with a family member, with a team member in your business. Always emotionally regulate yourself before. So I was feeling so dysregulated and so anxious and so bad about the whole situation that I was like really just wanting to like get it over and done with so that I could move on with my life. And that whole night before, that whole weekend, I was just in such an emotional state. And when it was leading up to the conversation, we were long distance and I really just wanted to call him in the middle of the night, my time, and just be done with it and move on. I'm really glad I didn't because I forced myself to emotionally regulate. I forced myself to shower, to eat, to EFT tap, to journal before I went into the conversation because I really didn't want to word vomit at the person. I didn't want to be unkind to them. I didn't want to be overreactive. And that really helped me. Now, I even made a list of points that I wanted to communicate to the other person because I just really wanted to make sure that I said what I needed to say, but I didn't do it in a like emotional, reactive and mean way. And that really helped me leave that conversation with a lot of like closure of I said what I needed to say. I also think that if you emotionally regulate before having difficult conversations, then the other person is a lot more receptive and it makes it flow a lot easier. My ex was like really nice about it. He was like, thank you for taking the time to think through all of that and communicate it to me. He was really sweet. And it made it a lot more loving to end the relationship in that way. So if you ever have to have a breakup conversation in any capacity, even if it's not romantic, please go and emotionally regulate yourself first. And then when you think about what you want to say, if you make talking points, you don't have to, they helped me. There's 2 things I want you to consider. Number 1 is boundaries. And with ending a relationship, one of those things is contact. So I asked my previous partner, I was like, what are your boundaries around contact before I tell you mine? And he gave me his, and then I gave him mine. And one of them was, do not contact me for 3 months because it takes that long to break a habit. And I want to move on with my life. And then once you do end that time, you can reach out for this reason, this reason, this reason. And it made me feel a lot better because it wasn't as like abrasive and abrupt as like never speak to me again. It was just, I need my space. And I think that's something that is really important when you're having difficult conversations, like I said, with anyone in your life. So establishing the boundaries, establishing the rules of contact, super, super, super key and important. Then I think if you can, taking the ownership and just being like, I'm not accusing you, this is just how I feel. And that's how I said, like, this is how I feel, this is my point of view, this is my perspective, like no one is the villain here. And ending things with gratitude, because if you were in a relationship, there was a reason that you chose to be with that person. And so if you can close things with gratitude, that is so powerful for you and for your ability to just move on with your life and like feel peaceful. And so these were like my guidelines around the conversation itself. Now, again, like I said, not everyone has the ability to know that they're going into that kind of conversation or to do those things. So that was just a little bit of pre-advice. Now let's get into actually navigating the shitstorm that is being broken up with or having a breakup. Number 1 is you can know in your mind that it was 100% the right decision, but you will still feel upset and you will feel grief. Someone leaving your life is a loss. Now, I have been super fortunate to never have lost anyone to death that I really love, but this was a really acute sense of grief that I felt because I knew I'm never going to speak to this person again. And that was really, really challenging because I was like, oh my God, I've spent so much time speaking to them. I really care about them. I don't know how this is going to be. And also it's not just grief of the person, it's grief of the life that you imagined with them. It's grief of like the moments that you thought you were going to share. Like me and my ex, we talked about places that we were going to go together, travel, family we were going to introduce each other to, things we were going to teach each other, learn from each other, experience together. And none of that ever got to happen. And so, like I said, heartbreak is something that you can't rationalize yourself out of. It's something that you're going to experience in your body. And so you can mentally know that something was the right decision for you, but it's okay to feel grief. And the grief will be physiological. It's something that's going to happen without you knowing or understanding or rationalizing. And the more you accept it, the easier it will be. Number 2 is you have to give yourself space to feel those feelings. And if you don't, then they will come out in a bad way down the line. It could be in like anxiety, stress. It could be reacting at other people in your life and being snappy and being mean or whatever. And so what I did this week was I would wake up a little bit earlier and I would just give myself time to not do like the crazy morning routine and not work and just cry and just be upset. And that meant that I created a kind of container for my feelings. And obviously I allowed myself to feel them outside of that. But because I gave myself the time and the space to be sad, and I wasn't like, oh, you just have to move on. You just have to like be okay. You have to be better. It made it so much easier in the other parts of my day to feel okay. And then linking to that, it's going to come in waves. Like you will feel completely fine. There's been moments this week where I felt completely fine. I've been ready to move on with my life, been ready to work, been ready to pour more time into my friendships, into my other life things. And then all of a sudden you will just feel really sad. And like I said, it's not rational. It's an emotional experience that you feel. And so giving yourself the space, the time and the energy to just allow that and just be fine with it is really, really, really important. The next thing I would say is, like I said earlier, gratitude is so important. It gives you so much peace. When this relationship ended a few days ago, I was so scared to leave my house and walk around and go past all the spaces that we had our dates and that we kind of fell in love with each other and we spent time together. And I just felt so scared of like being nostalgic and being angry and being sad. But once I actually ended up walking past those spaces, I just told myself, let's just be grateful instead. And so I would force myself to be like, thank you, so-and-so person, for this experience. Thank you, so-and-so person, for this. And it brought a lot of peace. And actually, the first time I left my house after the breakup, I walked past the place that we had our first date, and I saw this graffiti on the wall that said, smile today, more love, por favor, which means like more love, please. And I felt like that was a sign of when you give gratitude for things, even when they end, maybe with not every bit of closure that you wanted, then it makes it so much easier. And I have literally nothing but gratitude towards my previous partner, because I learned a lot from that relationship. Even the bad things, I learned a lot about the kind of person I want to be in the future, the way I want to handle my emotions, the way I want to communicate, the way I get triggered about certain things. And then also the good things of like feeling safe, feeling loved, feeling cared for. And so when you bring gratitude into that, it's so powerful. Gratitude is amazing, but I think also you're going to feel shame and you're going to feel failure. I felt like such a failure when my relationship ended, because it was my first one. It was really short. And I was like, oh, what was the point? Like, why did I give it a go? Why did I try? I should have known better. I didn't want to tell anyone because I didn't want anyone to be like, oh, like we told you so, or you should have known, or all these things. But you can't fail if you didn't try. And I don't regret failing, because I would have regretted more not knowing what that would have been like. I really loved that person and really cared about them. And I think when you try, you risk being embarrassed, you risk being rejected, you risk looking like a fool, but you also get to have a lot of amazing experiences and learning, and nothing can take that away from you. And if you don't risk trying, you are never gonna be in a situation that serves you, whether that be a relationship, a job, an experience, a friendship. And so depersonalize failure. It doesn't mean anything about your worth. When something fails, it's not about worth, it's about alignment. And that was like one of the major reasons that my relationship ended. What I wanted with my life was different to what he wanted with his. And so the relationship ended up finishing, because like what like more is that? It's not about I'm rejecting you or you're rejecting me. Sometimes it's just the life that I want doesn't have space for you in it. And that sucks, but it's really important to internalize that and to understand that and to know that it's really like not that serious. And I think also with forgiveness and failure, it comes like back to the point of forgiving yourself. When your relationship ends and you're hurt with the other person, yeah, you have this responsibility to forgive them for when they hurt you, because you don't want to carry all of that pain into your next relationship or into your life. But you also have to forgive yourself for accepting that behavior, for things that you might have done imperfectly, for staying in a relationship as long as you did. When I was thinking about why I felt angry, why I felt upset, why I felt annoyed, all these things, there were so many little things that I was like, he did this, he did that, he said this. And then I thought about it and I was like, all these things I do to myself too. I didn't like the fact that he would compare me to other girls and his ex-girlfriends and everything. But when I thought about it, I was like, I compare myself to other people sometimes in isolation of him. And it's my responsibility to not do that. I didn't like the fact that sometimes he would say that he was going to do something and he didn't. But then I reflected and I was like, I do that. I promise myself I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And sometimes I feel too tired and I don't do it and I procrastinate. And so I think with forgiveness, self-forgiveness is a really big part, and it takes a lot of accountability to just be like, I have to take ownership in my part of this. And there's a big difference between fault and responsibility. Someone hurting you is not your fault, but it's your responsibility to deal with how it makes you feel and what you're going to do next. I have learned from this that there are certain things that just don't sit okay with me, and I forgive myself for allowing it for as long as I did, and now I'm not going to do it anymore. And also I forgive myself for treating myself the way that I did in certain ways. And I'm learning to forgive myself for little things that I did that may have upset him. Like, I'm not perfect. And I think most of the time with breakups, again, we're going to take out the extreme cases of abuse and blah, blah, blah and whatever. But most of the time it's just two people being human and making mistakes. And I think like there is no villain. In my story, there was no villain. It was just, like I said, two people that just aren't right for each other. And so forgiving someone, you have to forgive yourself as well. And that's really hard. And I ended up writing like an I forgive you letter to him and one for myself, and didn't put it anywhere, but it was just like for closure. And also when I was sending him his stuff, I ended up putting notes of gratitude on everything. And I was like, I'm very thankful for this and for this memory, and I'm very thankful for this and for how you made me feel here and here and here and here, and thank you. And when I sent off all his stuff and I said goodbye, it just, again, gave me so much peace that I ended it with love. And yeah, again, there are things that upset me, but when you think about it in general, you can take that and you can learn from it, and you can just be a better person for next time. And I remember there was a good friend of mine who had a breakup, she was one of those people where objectively it was the fault of the other partner, and there was a lot of like there was a lot of lies and there was a lot of issues and everything. And I was like, how did you keep your heart open after all of that happened? And what she said to me was so compelling. She was like, I'm not going to close my heart and change who I am as a person because of how someone else behaved. And I think that's what you need to remind yourself. Like, if you are an inherently grateful person, kind person, then doesn't matter how someone else acted. You should always give yourself that closure, that forgiveness, and that gratitude so that you can move on with peace in your life. And that's something that really, really, really helped me. Speaking of friends, let yourself lean on your friends and the amazing people in your life. So I would not have the strength to be in a podcast studio talking to you guys 3 days after my first ever breakup if I didn't have the best friends in the world. They got me flowers, they texted me every day, they cooked for me, they reminded me that there's so many other forms of love and happiness and relationships in your life. And I think that sometimes we put too much importance on romantic relationships, but like friendships, family, self-love, these things are all so important. And actually, I think if there's any guys watching this is like so applicable to you as well, because female friendship is like really cutesy. And yeah, like I said, like I got flowers and I got cooked for and everything. But when me and my ex ended our relationship, I gave him homework because I'm a bit crazy. And I was like, your homework is to take the space, the time and the energy that you used to give me and put it into friendships for a little bit, because I would not have the strength to end our relationship if I didn't have good friends. And I really hope that you have good friends going forwards. And I think everyone should really create space and time for the people in their life. And when you end a relationship, you focus so much on like, I'm not receiving love anymore. But sometimes it's important to give love. And actually, this week I started to think more about the other relationships in my life that I neglected when I got into like my previous relationship. And I was thinking, how can I give love to all of these other people? What can I do? What are nice things that I can do for them? How can I show up for them? How are they showing up for me? And it just made me feel so much better. And I was like, I have this beautiful world and life. And yeah, okay, there's some things that you just can't get in friendship that you will get in romantic partnership, but there are so many other things that you get, and you should enjoy that and make space for that and celebrate that. And I think it can be really hard when you're going through something to reach out to your community of friends and stuff, because you don't want to be a burden. I didn't want that. I didn't want to be that girl that was like calling all the people in my life and crying and complaining about someone and all this stuff. And so I had the instinct to isolate myself and to not talk to anyone for a little bit. But my friends didn't let me. They were like, this is part of being your friend. This is part of life. This is part of like hearing you talk about the things that happen to you. We're here for you. And when someone really cares about you, your problems are not their burdens. And a burden shared is a burden half. Like there's a saying for a reason. Also, sometimes just like being around people is important. You don't even have to talk about it. Just like leave your house, leave your environment, and be not distracted, but be present somewhere else. It's so useful and so nice. And I think like being a better friend to yourself as well. So my next bit of advice is like, how can you be a better friend and person for yourself? Because you are the only person that you are going to like consistently be with for the rest of your life. When my relationship ended, I kept seeing all these things come up about like love yourself and do all this stuff. And I really didn't want to love myself. I didn't feel pretty. I didn't feel important. I didn't feel special. I felt rejected. I felt abandoned. But then I was like, okay, how can I make myself feel better? And I was thinking about what I lacked in that relationship. And one of those things was like words of affirmation, because I just really need that and I really enjoy it. And so I went and I was like doing a solo day, and I like was doing things that I enjoy and like giving myself all the different love languages. And I went into the shop and I found this jar in the Valentine's Day section, cruel, 2 days after a breakup, going into the Valentine's Day section of a shop. And it said the reasons I love you on it. And I decided that every time I missed the other person, or I felt angry, or I felt sad, or I felt emotional, or I felt unworthy, I would force myself to write something nice about myself and put it into the jar. And I think like sometimes we rely too much on other people for permission and validation. So when you do that, you disempower yourself. And I did that for a little bit. I was a very secure person going into my relationship, but then I think that security, once I got into that relationship, was like, it's now his responsibility to make me feel special and to make me feel important and make me feel good and everything. And it's not like, I mean, yes, okay, you want to be with someone who makes you feel special and important, validated, all these things, but your bit never goes away. And so how can you give yourself that love? How can you give yourself that special treatment? Words of affirmation, like I said, is one of my big love languages. So I did the jar. Do the jar if you can. It doesn't have to be like a special Valentine's Day jar. It can be a bowl, a cup, a glass, whatever. Physical touch, like what can you do? Acts of service. I cleaned out my whole closet and my house, and I was like, I'm just gonna now find some things to make my life a bit easier. In terms of quality time, like I said, I set some time and I did some of my favorite activities, and I made a list of lots of things that made me happy, and I just made some time to do those things. Gifts, you can get yourself something little. My best friend, when the day of the breakup, I was like crying on the phone. She was like, go get some lunch and get some perfume, and that's going to make you feel ready, like in terms of in your body and in your senses for a new era. And that was so helpful. So like, how can you be a better friend, a better person for yourself as well, and rely on the other people in your life? So important. If you want to see some other ideas of how I do it, then go follow me on like TikTok, Instagram, because I've been documenting the process of getting my spark back. And again, it's been a few days, but I already feel like 80 to 90% me again, and I'm ready for the up level. Okay, this is so important because like I said, I feel 80 to 90% me, and I'm ready for the up level. There is no point winning a breakup. I am so anti-revenge body and revenge life, because this whole idea of like revenge body, or like I'm gonna now be the like best version of myself to prove you wrong, is still inherently centered on the other person. As soon as I hung up the phone for about like an hour, I had the instinct of being like, I'm gonna make him regret his life. I'm gonna get so fit. I'm gonna make so much money. I'm gonna be so successful. When we were having our last conversation, he was like, when can I, like, we're talking about when we see each other and stuff. And I was like, Forbes, and he giggled and he laughed at me, and I was like, I'm going to prove him wrong. But when you center yourself on like revenge and proving the other person wrong, it's still completely about them. And you put the power on them, you put the timeline on them, you put the pressure on them. It's not about them. I now want better health in my life after this relationship, not out of revenge to him, but out of reverence to me. I don't know if that makes sense. I'm going to repeat it again. I don't want better health. I don't want more money, more success, more enjoyment in my life out of revenge for him, but out of reverence for me. I lost a lot of my habits and my health and my confidence because I just let it go to the side, and I want to bring that back. I want to lower inflammation in my body and feel better and feel more confident, not for anyone else, but for me, so that I feel more grounded and more secure for the next thing that comes in my life. And I think that's so important. Like, it's not about the other person. You gain nothing out of proving the other person was wrong or right, or like they're going to regret their life, or any of these kind of things. And this is the kind of thing I see on the internet all the time, which is why I'm making this point. It is not about them. It is about you. And I think with that comes this thing of like not rushing. I had this immediate like instinct of like, again, how am I going to make my life so much better? How am I going to give it like a 360 overhaul? How am I going to make this the year that is my year? And I'm going to make everyone like wonder, why has she, like, what's happened? No, you don't need to rush. You don't need to rush into becoming the next version of yourself. Enjoy it. I was feeling so much anxiety. I was like, the best version of me is like within reach, and I just don't have the energy to like be them and all this stuff. But it's not about the other person. It's not about this. You have to let something end for something new to begin. And for something new to begin, you have to let something truly end. And that means grieving. That means being tired and resting. That means planning and strategizing and reflecting and integrating and thinking, what can I bring into this next season of my life? And so the less pressure you put on yourself to bring your spark back, the quicker it will come back. I was forcing myself. I was like, how am I going to glow up? How am I going to be more successful? What am I going to do? How am I going to be more busy? And then I was like, no. And I made some time to just exist and to just feel my feelings. And now I feel so much better. It's like, I don't know if you've ever seen those videos on social media where it's like, there's like dirt in a cup and you put water over it and then you just keep pouring. You have to keep pouring until all that dirt comes out and then the water runs clear. And so you have to give yourself the time and the space to feel your feelings and to slow down a little bit. And progress is never linear. I think about last year, 2025 was the year that my life changed. I went from uni student to CEO. I started a company. I grew a team. I made this podcast like much better in terms of production, in terms of branding. I ran a half marathon. I got into my first relationship, all these things. And none of this happened linearly. It never happened when I was focusing on the how. It happened in seasons of like sowing the seeds and harvesting. And so when you feel heartbroken and when you feel upset, you don't need to force yourself to run 1,000,000 miles an hour. Sow the seeds, set your intentions, slow the hell down, hibernate, and rest, because harvest season is coming. I promise you, harvest season is coming. And my last point is linked to this. Harvest season is coming, and life's plan for you is always, always better than your plan for life. Always. In relationships, in work, in friendships, in experiences. This has happened to me so many times now. I find it hilarious, and I'm going to make a separate episode on how I get like rerouted in so many different ways. But this is another crazy thing I did on my breakup call. When we got together, I made my ex make a vision board, and I'm going to link the vision board episode down below because there's a very specific way I do it. And when our relationship ended, I told him to take the things off that included me and put surprise on there instead, because life has this wonderful way of surprising you. And like I said, life's plan for you is often better than your plan for life. And universe works in crazy ways, because when I was considering, should I stay in this relationship? Should I not? I don't know if this is good for me. I don't know if this is making me a better person. I was sitting there and I was losing sleep. And I remember saying to myself, like to the universe, to God, whatever you want to call it, whatever you believe, I was like, I'm not going to do anything anymore because I'm going crazy wondering whether I should end it or whether I should try harder, whether I should stay. What should I do? If this is not meant for me, please remove it and get rid of it in the most crazy way that I can't even deny it. The next day, this is funny, this is hilarious. The next day, so I was traveling, my ex was traveling, and he had tickets to come back and visit me in my city before he moved back to his home country. And these were already booked, these were already paid for, and while we were both traveling, there was a lot of issues and I was wondering, should I stay? Should I go? What do I think? How do I feel? Blah, blah, blah. I was going crazy. And I made this prayer of like, if it's not meant for me, get rid of it. The next day, he calls me and he's like, I've run out of pages in my passport. I can't travel anymore. I've been stopped at the airport. They won't let me go to my next destination. The country that I got the tickets to come see you from won't accept the emergency passport, so I can't physically come and see you. I was shook when he told me. I was so shocked. I, at the time, was so clouded in like anxiety and fear that I was like, oh my God, I might never see him again. And I got like really, really, really anxiously attached. And I was like, oh, I don't know. And I was just still at this point, like, I don't know what's happening. Is this a test? Like all these things. But literally, you can't ask for a clearer sign than that. He physically, like, what? And so if something is not meant to be in your life, there is nothing that you can do to force it to stay. And if something is meant to be in your life, there's nothing that you can do to force it to leave. And so I think just use whatever pain, grief, mourning you have to create some detachment that life's plan is working for you. And like I said, when I was really upset and I was like, how am I gonna move past this? I keep walking past all these places that I really miss him and I feel really bad. And the first thing I saw when I left my house was more love, please, and smile today. And so I hope this is the comfort that you need. This episode was not intended to slander anyone. I still have a lot of love for my previous partner. I loved him so much. He was the first person I ever like fell in love with. And I really, really am grateful for that relationship. But I made this because I wanted to explain that it always gets better. Everything always happens for a reason. And in the meantime, you're allowed to feel bad and you're allowed to rely on the people around you. Rely on yourself a little bit more and back yourself. You're going to be okay. You don't need to watch all these crazy videos on how to get a revenge body and how to glow up. Like, you are fine. Regulate your nervous system, slow down, relax, enjoy your life a little bit more. In order to get a better hand, you have to reshuffle the deck. So if you feel like your life is falling apart, if you're having a breakup, if you're heartbroken, if you feel like shit, the deck is reshuffling. Just trust the process. You're going to be okay. Thank you for listening to this episode. Stay tuned for next week. We're going to be back, and let me know what you want to see in this season of the podcast, because things are getting better and better. And like I said, I'm getting my spark back, baby. So stay tuned. If you like this, follow along on the Instagram, on the TikTok, and I've got some really fun things planned. So thank you for watching. Lots of love to you. You're going to be okay. I promise you.